Hello there. It's a bank holiday today, Bank Holiday Monday, and I find that on bank holidays people are much more unconscious than normal and disturbing. Um, they really just let themselves go. The week has a particular rhythm in terms of consciousness. Monday, people get themselves up and inject some discipline into their lives. That's very noticeable. Friday is a good day to be run over because everybody's rushing home in the car, and in a well-meaning way, in a happy way, they're just racing through the roads, cutting corners. They want to be the first person to be home and watch TV and be relieved of their work. Sundays you can be run over as well because people are kind of sleepy and don't drive well. But Bank Holiday Monday, people are it's like a double or triple weekend effect. Everybody just wants to gorge themselves and drink and eat and just let all their wild animals do whatever. It's interesting also to consider the moon phases and their effect on our environment. Back in those many years when I would sit in meditation for hours every day, I certainly noticed the effect of the full moon, and the effect is quite interesting because it makes meditation practice very powerful, almost too powerful. Normally when I sit down in meditation, I will settle into it, settle my body, my breathing, just assume the posture, and gradually things would line up, and then I would begin the inner practice after 10 minutes or so. And maybe after another 10 minutes it would become strong and I would have a strong sense of presence. That would be quite typical. But when there's a full moon, it's just bang on. It's on, And this presents a real problem because you're not really prepared for it. And it's like beginning in fifth gear. If you're in a car, it's like beginning in fifth gear. The car's not prepared for it, and sometimes I've found that I can go with it and go straight into fifth gear, and that's possible, but it's really not ideal because your body and your other systems are not lined up, and it's better to try, and even if it's a full moon, it's better to start in first gear and work your way up, even if you do it quickly. That's my discovery. So basically, I think why it's like that is because I'm just conjecturing here, but because the sun and the moon are on opposite sides of the earth, they create a balance of consciousness, and so you enter quite a pure, balanced consciousness, meaning that having the sun on one side and the moon on the other is actually balancing the waves of consciousness in our environment, which means that the waves of consciousness in our environment are strongly related to the sun and the moon somehow. And And it may not actually be due to the light reflecting from the moon. It may simply be that there is a balance. Now when you have a new moon, a black moon, both the sun and the moon are on the same side, aligned. And again there is a strong balance, and you can have the same kind of effect in meditation, but it's of a lesser extent, and it's a bit different. It has a more of a yin feeling, like an introverted type of feeling. So when you've got both bodies on the same side in a new moon, they also provide a balance. I'll have to think more about that, because I think there's more available. The position of the sun and moon, they affect the waves of consciousness that we experience. And when the sun and the moon are on opposite sides, it's very strong and coherent. It's a high state. It's very available. And I think the effect of that on ordinary human beings is that they do not understand it. They cannot understand it, and it actually scrambles their brain, and they become wild. They become lunatics. So when there's a full moon, people become wild, but not because the energy is wild, but because the energy is coherent, and the lower consciousness of human beings cannot grasp it. Which actually tells you a lot, because human beings cannot understand higher teachings, and they respond by crucifying Jesus. It becomes offensive to them. And the thing that I really wanted to talk about this morning was that as I sit here, I can hear people mowing the lawn. I can hear various voices inside myself, many eyes, feelings, emotions. I can hear children playing outside. I can hear sounds in the distance. And it's like if I include all of this stuff that's both, say, within me, my own voices, or outside me, it's just a huge soup of waves of consciousness, a huge soup of all sorts of different things. It's like a kind of if you look at the sea and there's phosphorescence in there, or you look at the stars above, it's just like a kind of spray of different conscious fragments sprayed out, like a kind of a bouillabaisse soup of different consciousnesses, all floating together. And I experience all of them, you see. And it's very disturbing. And what we are trying to do is to be born within them, to be born as a single whole individual in amongst this kind of sea of noise and voices and consciousnesses of all different types. And it's very difficult. And I wanted to relate it, as above, so below, to the birth of stars in a stellar nursery. A stellar nursery is a region of space where stars are born. And the way it apparently works, according to scientists, is that over eons of time, the fine dust material in these regions accumulates into masses, large masses that are sun-sized, but they are not yet illuminated. And all this dust in this huge stellar nursery starts to concentrate and adhere into rocks and into larger rocks, and until they are the size of suns, huge masses of rock. floating in space, in a dark place. And then a supernova happens. I don't know how that happens, but one giant star is ignited, and it explodes, this shock wave, and the shock wave passes through the nursery, and the shock wave, as it passes through each of these dark, dormant masses, it ignites them, and one after the other, the stars explode into life and become lit stars from their dormant state, and it blows out of the nursery all the rest of the dust, so that all that's left is clean air and several stars in there. And I think the spiritual path is very much like that, in that we are born in a stellar nursery of all sorts of dust and noise, and we have to accumulate ourselves into a large integral being, until a teacher comes who's like a supernova and sends a shock wave through us, which ignites ourself, and then at the end everything else is dead, meaning all the fine material does not remain there. It's blown out and you remain alone, and meaning like all the noises and voices and sounds that I can hear, one day this is going to be blown away and they will not live on. The only thing that lives on is the realized beings. As above, so below. And so in amongst all this noise and these voices, both inside and outside, we have to cohere ourselves together. We have to become a coherent individual. And an individual is one who can do, or one who is actively alive. Human beings are not actively alive. They're more like receivers of some kind of social noise, which they all repeat like parrots. Human beings are the mouthpieces for a kind of large collective mind. One mind in many bodies, but they have not individuated themselves. They impersonate individuality. The human being is very clever to impersonate individuality. Of course, if you look at what he saw on TV in the preceding day, you will see that he's simply copying the TV. You see. In fact, the action of the internet on people is to destroy any individual shoots or growths that he might have that might be his own. As soon as any thoughts that you might have had in the day, instead of them actually growing into an individual, you switch on the internet or your mobile phone and they're wiped away from you and you end up being nothing. Which is how most human beings are living today. So there's two kinds of unity you can have. The unity of a self-realized being, which is conscious and individual, or you can have a different kind of unity where you basically destroy yourself into nothingness, which is what most human beings are doing. And many human beings, maybe most of them... If you'd like to listen to the rest of this recording and others, I've put them on Odyssey where there's no time limit. So please have a look on there. I've put the link down below. Take care.